In this video article, we're going to look at 30 lessons from self-publishing 30 non-fiction books on Amazon. This is part 1 of 3. Before we get started, if you want to get an email with a timestamped overview every time I release a new video, then head over to my website at deliberate-practice.com, sign up for my email list. There's other content at the website, and there's already some thank you email subscriber only material, which is a thank you for signing up. So let's start with a caveat. Although the Writing Vault is about fiction and fiction writing and all aspects of fiction, ideation, storytelling, short stories, story models, etc., I've published 30 non-fiction books across 2 different author names on Amazon in the last 4.5 years or so. And those 2 different names are, one is music books under Paul Wolf, and then I've also published, which is related to the Writing Vault, Lessons on Writing from Ray Bradbury, and How to Write in Your Dead Time, which is a book about dictation, under the name Paul T. Wolf, and they are much more connected to the Writing Vault than my music books. So I've got 30 books there, and in the time that I've been publishing on Amazon, I've learned a metric shit ton that I wanted to share with you guys and girls. If you're just interested in fiction, not all of this is applicable. Some of it was still applicable, and you can maybe take the ideas and twist them to suit your own personality and what you're writing. But if you've got any non-fiction books, or you're planning to write some non-fiction books, then some of the stuff that I'll talk about in here will be of interest for you. So take what works for you, ignore what doesn't. So let's get into it. So lesson number 1, this definitely applies to both. When you hit publish on Amazon, you've got simultaneous international publication, and Amazon's got somewhere in the region of, I think it's about 15 now, major stores, which ranges from obviously the US and the UK and Canada and Australia. They're the major English language speaking territories, but it also has Japan, Sweden, Germany, France, Italy, has all the European ones, and they also have distribution deals with other publishers, so the books are available in other territories, and Japan is the other big one that they have, and those stores service countries that don't have their own specific store. So with my music books particularly, I've got students who've brought books in South American countries. I think there's an Amazon Brazil now as well, but all the countries in South America, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Venezuela, etc. So I've got students in all those countries. There's one in Mexico too, I think, and maybe Mexico or Brazil are the countries that service some of the South American countries. But the point is, you have a book, you upload it to Amazon, you hit publish, and once it's live across the world pretty much instantaneously. Sometimes with physical books, it can take 3 or 4 days before the print-on-demand service that different territories use have it set up and populate it. But if it's an ebook, it will be available instantaneously as soon as you press publish. So that's a really cool thing about publishing on Amazon. Publish once, published everywhere in the world. Lesson number 2, the 80-20 of publishing worldwide. Now, depending on your exact niche or market, and some niches will vary differently to the statistics I'm about to share with you, the chances are that the US will be responsible for somewhere in the region of 70 to 90% of your sales. That's just how it is. I think it's a combination of the US their take-up of high-speed internet has been historically much quicker than other countries, so they have many more potential students in the US, plus they're much more used to buying direct mail online, which is something that other countries have been much slower. I know the take up in the UK was much slower because the UK is so much smaller that even someone who lives in the country, in inverted commas, maybe only lives 30-40 miles from a major town or city, whereas in the US, if you live in the country, you might be 4 hours from a major town or city. Anyway, I find that the US is responsible for most of my sales, so when you're writing, think about making your book US friendly, to cater to the fact that that is the likely territory that's going to be responsible for most of your sales. Lesson number 3. Now, how self-publishers can create an advance. Now, if you're a self-publisher, one of the things that I've seen people say is one of the disadvantages of self-publishing is that no one gives you an advance. There's an element of truth to that, but that's cool because you can create your own. Here's how I do it. I create a beta version of the book. I make it some kind of an event for my audience in terms of not only what happens as the book's being written. I kind of set it up as a quid pro quo, so they pay more than the end book will be, but they get a ton of bonuses and stuff like that for joining the beta version. And as the book's being written, I ask them to just check over and spot my typos. And sometimes, so you can check people are actually listening to you and reading, is you can put typos in and see if and how many people pick those up. But make sure you keep a list of them so you don't publish the book in the future with those typos in them. But you can, there's a million ways you can do it. Brandon Sanderson's got a great interview with Tim Ferriss where he talks about his Kickstarters. And if you think of it as like, you can do it on Kickstarter. The problem with doing it on Kickstarter is that you need to drive people to the Kickstarter page. I like to think of it as an internal Kickstarter. So because with my music students, I've got over the years, I've built up an email list of both buyers and non-buyers. I've got a list of people that I can draw from. So I do an internal Kickstarter for a beta version of each book. And the thing that I do that I think really helps is in the bonus package that I create, what I do is I make a limited edition of the book. I meant to have one close to hand and I don't think I do, unless that's one. So bear with me 1 second. There you go, you can tell this is all live. So normally my books are, this is one of my music books, they're normally hard glued with that kind of binding, which is not great for music books. So what I do is I create spiral bound versions which only go to beta readers. I don't sell them separately. And what I will turn to, I'll just show you on page 6 or 7. Let me just find it. There we go. So what I just do is I have a thank you page and a list of people's names, and when the books get posted, so I order, this one only had about 30 people backing it, but normally I get somewhere between 70 and 100. And if you charge $50-$60 like I do, you can do the math on that, and that's a semi-decent advance. Yes, you've got to keep money back to pay for the spiral bound copies that I send out. For depending on what you're doing, you can perhaps create a leather bound or there's a million ways you can do it. Go see the Brandon Sanderson interview with Tim Ferriss. He talks all about his Kickstarter stuff, and you can take ideas from that. But for me, and I cap mine at normally somewhere in the region of between 60 and 100, because signing books and taking to the post office is a right pain in the arse. I'll be frank with you about that. But if you're getting an advance of $3,000 or $5,000 or $2,500, that helps before you write the book, knowing that even if the book sells 0 copies, you've been paid for your time to write it, and it's another book in your library. So this is a quite a good way of doing it, getting their names in the book and then sending them a signed copy. I've got quite a few students who get the spiral bound copies, and also buy a normal copy from Amazon because they don't want to use the spiral bound copy. It becomes a collector's item for them. I'm as surprised by that as you probably are, but hey, that's it is what it is. And as you find information about your buyers and your customers, you can factor that into how you do business and stuff like that. So number 4, customers' email addresses. Now, when you self-publish on Amazon, the only data you get, they don't even tell you with physical copies when someone's actually purchased a copy. What you actually get is each day you can go and look at your stats, and it will tell you how many copies they've shipped. Not how many have been bought that day, but how many they've shipped. And sometimes there can be a 48, 72 hour delay on an order being shipped, depending on where they are in the world and stuff like that. So you get no access to any of that data. I don't even know. So one of the things that I like about dealing with Amazon is because it's print on demand, they handle all the printing, they ship it out to their customers, they take the payments, they give me my share, they get it on the 29th of the month. There used to be some issues with that, but now it's pretty, the last year or so I've had my money from every territory on the 29th of the month except one territory, and can you guess which territory that is? It's the UK, where I live. That's always 1 to 2 days late. There's no rhyme or reason for that being the case. But anyway, so they deal with all that, but they also deal with if someone gets your book and decides they don't like it and send it back, they deal with taking that back, and as far as I'm aware, I don't get charged anything for that. That's just a cost of business for Amazon. I don't know. So with the amount of books I've sold, I'm sure there has been a decent number. And with my music books, I'm now over 20,000 books. I'm sure there's been a number of books that have been bought and sent back. If you said to me, I'll give you £500 to tell me how many that is, I couldn't. I actually don't know, and there's no way of getting hold of that information. So you've got no access to any of that kind of data, no access to Amazon's customer list, so you don't know who bought the book. So what you've got to do, and as I say, I wouldn't expect that, you've got to offer something valuable in the book in return for them sending you something so you can add them to that valuable content and get their email address. So what I do with my music books is there's like you very briefly saw when I held the book up, there's in each of my books there's got to be 100 musical examples. So what I do is I create a web version of the book and I play all of those examples, and I give them practice tracks in MP3 format that they can download and some other bits and pieces, and it's really valuable. I've had a number of people say they've bought the book, got access to the website, and then just put the book for sale on eBay because they don't need it because the website is so valuable. And fair enough. I'm not going to complain about that. But the point I'm making is, even with offering something that valuable, I would say, based on my numbers, that perhaps only 50% of buyers actually sign up. And I have a filtering mechanism. They have to send me a copy of their invoice to prove they bought it new. But only about 50% of my buyers actually send me the copy of the invoice to get access to the online version, despite the fact that there's copious references to it within the book and what they get for signing up. It just is what it is. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, to use a cliche. So even if you do offer something valuable, which I highly recommend, you won't get every book buyer on Amazon to sign up for that thing so that you get their email address. But you will get some, and you can build up your own valuable customer list, because all of these people, so they've done hopefully 3 things, and we'll touch on some of these things in the later lessons in this series of 30 lessons. So they've bought the book, so they've spent their hard-earned money on your book, which is the first thing. The second thing is, for me, they've taken the time to read one of the 2 or 3 locations within the book where I tell them what to do to get access to the online version, and they've emailed me, so they physically typed my email address into their email program, and they've attached a copy of their invoice to prove they brought it new and sent that. So that's two really good signs that they're really engaged. And hopefully the third one is, and sometimes I get emails from people saying, oh, here's my copy of the invoice to prove that I brought the book. And sometimes when they're doing that, they're saying, oh, by the way, I'm halfway through the book, I'm really enjoying it, I'm learning loads, blah 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 blah. So they're really engaged, and that's what you want. You want someone who's paid money and who's really engaged with your book, and hopefully it's having a transformational experience for them, or helping them learn something. So you're building up your business relationship with them. So building your own valuable customer list is one of the first things you should think about if you're thinking of writing a non-fiction book and you haven't yet, think about this before you even put pen to paper. So lesson number 5, how you actually use these emails. So I would recommend you start with a consumption sequence. So you're going to say, what's a consumption sequence? It's maybe 3 to 5 emails that you send to your buyers to actually get them to use your book and get results or benefits. And you can go through your own bookshelf, look at your bookshelf, and you can go, I've got these 50 books or 100 books or 200 books, however many it is, and look at which ones you've never actually opened. And if you've never opened those books, although you've spent the money, you're no better than a lead to that author, because you've not gone through the book, been exposed to what they're teaching, learned something from them, and got material benefits or material improvements in your life, and become potentially an engaged buyer for that author. So if you can come up, and they don't need to be detailed emails, they can be really simple emails, and you can set them up to be sent out automatically, and they can go out to the customers or the buyers to actually try and get them to use your book and start getting the benefit and the results that they actually bought the book for in the first place. And as I just mentioned, buyers are much more valuable than email leads or social media followers. And what's more valuable than buyers? Engaged buyers. If you can get engaged buyers, then they're on the way to the path, and we won't go into this in detail here, but the path of being one of your 1,000 true fans. You can go Google that, Kevin Kelly's article, very interesting article. And if you write non-fiction books especially, you should be looking to try and build your audience of 1,000 true fans. Okay, use your email list for various things. One of them you can use it for is automated review requests. So what that is so how I do it for each book, after 14 days, they get an email, my customers get an email saying reviews are really important on Amazon, which they really are. Please could you review my book? And the other thing that I do is say, if you don't know what to say, just answer these 3 questions honestly. Now, what you mustn't do, and you'll see this in another lesson in the next part of this series of 3 videos, what you mustn't do is say, if you leave me a fantastic review, I'll send you a link to this or a bonus, or I'll send you £5, or no, don't do anything like that. So you just politely ask them for a review, and just ask them to be honest, and that's it. You don't ask for anything. You cannot, if you start trying to bribe them, in inverted commas, to leave you a review, to build your reviews up, if Amazon get wind of that, you risk having your Amazon account terminated. They take it that seriously. So it's just a polite request. The other thing that I do is leaving a review. How it's done on Amazon isn't normally hyper intuitive. You have to click a few things, but for each of your books you can find a link which is actually, there's a unique Amazon link which is a link to the review for that book, and you can just, by changing the country codes, you can just have a list in your email of exactly where they need to click to start leaving a review. So if you just say, if you're already logged in on Amazon, just click the appropriate country link and you can start typing your review text. So make it as frictionless for them as possible. You can also use your email list for surveys, for content ideas or future books. Very occasionally I'll write to all my book buyers and my course buyers, and I'll say, what would you like to see my next book on? Just to see what kind of ideas people will come up with, because sometimes someone will come up with an idea and you'll go, oh my lord, why didn't I think of that? What a great idea. And it gives you an idea for a new book or a new course. But it's just a way of keeping engaged with your audience, and it's a very low friction ask for them. They don't feel like you're selling them anything. So you can use it for surveys as well. And then if you've got product launches or new books, anything like that going out, the first people you want to email are your book buyers, and also if you do seasonal sales. Now, variable pricing is something we'll talk about in lesson, I think it's lesson 20 or 21, it might be 18 or 19, I've already forgotten, but it's not something I've ever seen anyone talk about, so do stay tuned to this series for that. If you're a fiction writer, you'll definitely want to know about that as well. Okay, lesson number 7. I'm just going to have a quick drink. Lesson number 7, the 7 keywords. Now, when you upload a book to Amazon KDP, which is where you upload your files to be published on Amazon, you get up to 7 keywords that you can use when you upload your book. What you want to do is do a bit of research to try and get the best 7 keywords you can, and also cross-reference those keywords with your titles and your subtitles and see if you can get some of them in the titles and subtitles. All those things help tell the Amazon algorithm what your book is about, who they should be targeting, who might be interested in your book. So do that thing. Also, if you can, use those keywords in your description, and make sure when you upload that you get them right, and don't do the rookie error which I just found yesterday on one of my books. I was uploading my latest book, this was actually Sunday I think, uploading my latest book, and it was the 5th in a series, and we'll talk about series in a moment and why perhaps you shouldn't do a series, but I was uploading the 5th and I wanted to go to the first book in the series, which, bear in mind, this was published Christmas 2021, so it's been out there for 4 years, and I found 2 spelling mistakes in 2 of the keywords, which basically rendered those keywords inoperative. How I've done that and never noticed or never seen, God only knows. So use your keywords and make sure you spell them right. Use them in your description as well. So even when you think you know everything, you always find little typos and little mistakes that you've made, and they are literally face palm moments, and that was one of them. So make sure when you do use your keywords that they're spelt correctly. Okay, lesson 8, onto series or standalones. Number 1, so when starting out, write standalone books. When you've got a standalone book, you can potentially sell to everyone in your niche, but when you have book 2 or 3 of a series, you can only really market it to people who have bought the previous book. So this happened to me. I learned this the hard way. So my first book was the first book of a series. My second book was the first book of another series. My third book was the second book of the first series, and it had really disappointing sales, and I was really, I was really perplexed. Anyway, books 4 and 5 were 2 completely different books, as in new books. One was a standalone, one was the start of another series, and when I published those, and I published those 2 within 30-40 days of each other, sales really took off, and I really started to think again about the series or standalone concepts. And so if you are writing non-fiction books, for fiction this is slightly different. People say you should try and write series books. I cannot comment on series or standalones for fiction from a sales perspective, because I've got no data, and I don't want to say, oh, I think you should do this for fiction, because I'd be talking out my arse, because I don't know anything about it. But for non-fiction, if you plan to write a lot of books, like 10, 15, 20, then my advice would be start to build your audience of buyers with maybe 5, and only then think about standalones. But if you do write a series, also don't go beyond 3 books. I mentioned I've just published the 5th book of a series. I wish that book hadn't been 5 books long, and it's taken 3 or 4 years to write all of the books within the series. And you get the problem you get is, if you are going to write a series, try and write them all one after the other, because the number of emails I've got, I finished book 3, when's book 4 starting, when are you going to publish that, and just swap 3 and 4 for any numbers of the 5-book series. So if you are going to write a series, my one piece of advice would be set the time aside to write them one after the other, and try and keep it to 3 books. Second lesson on series or standalones. If you're playing the long game, where series are really great is they can help you identify potential higher value customers. So what this means is someone who is on to book 3 of a series is much likelier to buy higher priced products or services that you may have separate to your books on Amazon, than someone who's never bought one of your books. Once they've gone on to 3 or 4 books, and I wish on the email server that I use for my music book buyers, that I had some kind of customer scoring, because I've got people who've bought 15 books, and those people I should be targeting with my higher priced stuff. But there's no way of that software being able to identify them and say, listen, you should be targeting this guy because they've got 15 of your books. I've got a couple of people who've got all 28 of my books, believe it or not. To me, that is staggeringly mind-boggling. But there you go. But the thing to know, if you do have a series, when you're a bit more established, if you've got other higher priced products or services that you plan to launch or plan to sell, people who've been through 3 or 4 books are much further along the path to being one of your 1,000 true fans than someone who's never bought a book. And so buying the 3rd book in a series sends you a signal, and somewhere along the line you should be taking note of that signal, and adapting your marketing for those people accordingly. So I've just mentioned all that. So the final lesson for this video is think about formats. Now Amazon has got these formats. It's got hardcover, paperback, audio and ebook. And depending on your niche, physical and audio books have got much more chance of being consumed than an ebook, which is just a Kindle book. And if you want the proof of that, so someone challenged me about this. I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, if someone orders a physical book, they get that physical book in the post, so they've got the thing comes through their letterbox, they've got to open it up, and then they get the book out. So getting the book is almost like a mini event. And then that book, so if it's too far away now, I've put it on the floor, but if you've got a book, and my music books are 8.5 by 11 inches, so they're the biggest book size that Amazon can print, and they're a reasonable size, that they're not quite A4, but they're about 85% of A4, I'm going to say, something like that. And so when they're in someone's home, hopefully they're on their music stand in their office or in their music space. When they're in someone's home, every time they walk past it, they see it, and hopefully it's got much more chance of being used. Whereas if you've got a book that's on a Kindle, it's only going to be on the front of the Kindle if you've selected it. And my Kindle, I don't know if yours is the same, but do this exercise. You can go to your Amazon account on a desktop, not on your Kindle, on a desktop, and go and look at all the books you've got in Kindle format. And I went and did this exercise about 6 months ago, and I've got over 2 200 books on it that I've never read, and I guess the problem is it's out of sight, out of mind. Whereas if you've got a physical book, hardcover or paperback, or audio is slightly different, because although you get a digital file for that and it's in their app, the people who consume audiobooks are always listening to audiobooks, so they're in their ears. So that's a really good so those two formats are much better for consumption than ebook. And funnily enough, for my music books, my experience of ebooks with music books on my iPad or on my desktop computer is that they don't come across very well for actually being used, because for music students we've got exercises that we want to play, or we've got bass lines that we want to play, and it doesn't work very well with ebook. So I don't actually have ebook format for any of my music books. But for other topics, if you don't have a Kindle book, you are going to lose buyers. So yes, you're probably going to have to do a Kindle book, but try and, if you can, so if someone came to me and said, I want to buy your book, which format should I buy? I would try and get them to buy paperback or hardcover first, then audio, depending on what their preference is, because some people don't like reading and they consume written media in audio formats. I don't. I'm the other way around. I hate audio formats. I don't know why, but they just bore me. I much prefer to be reading something. But I would much rather a buyer had got either a physical copy or was listening to it via Audible in their app from their phone, rather than an ebook. So yeah, so that's just something to think about when you're publishing. Be careful about it. Don't just do ebook only, unless the only reason I can see for ebook only is if you've got a very thin, like a 40 or 50 page book that's on something really specific, then maybe that could be ebook only. But if you've got anything slightly bigger, anything over 100 pages, you should have it in all formats, if at all possible. So that's the first 10 lessons. In the next video, we're going to look at lessons 11 to 20. 18 and 19 are, I think I've cross-referenced one of those obliquely in this lesson, but I've never seen anyone really talk or teach about lessons 18 or 19, so look forward to those. As I've said at the start of the video, this is based on my non-fiction book experience, so while some of this will relate to fiction, you may have to adapt it if you're primarily a fiction writer and you're self-publishing fiction. And if you are a fiction writer, especially if you're at the newer end of the spectrum, I'm putting a resource together called the Writing Vault that you might be interested in. The URL's there on the screen in front of you. There'll be a link to that in the description below. Go and check that out and see what you think. It might be of value. If you've got questions on that or anything we've covered in the video, just email me, paul@deliberate-practice.com, and ask a question. Thank you for your time with this video. I'll catch you in the next video, and here, this screen, I'll put some recommended videos from my YouTube channel that you can go and check out if you've not checked them out.